Hello, Aishwarya. How are you?
Hello, Nimayi. I'm well. How are you?
I'm doing well. Thank you for joining today from sunny France, it seems.
hmm
Um, and glad we could talk because one of your essays, The Fragility of Borrowed Intelligence, is going to be featured in our inaugural collection on the attention economy. So thank you for that. And we're pretty excited to put that out there. And I thought we could chat a little bit today about the ideas in that essay and also other things that you've got going on, other things on your mind. Give people a chance to hear what's on your mind. So how does that
Cool.
sound?
Sounds great.
So you want to start with just a little quick intro about yourself, kind of what you're up to these days, anything about your background that you want to share before we jump into it?
Sure. What am I doing these days? Well, I guess my background is very much informed by how I grew up. I was born and raised in India, moved to Canada in 2010. I did not speak English until then, and I think that that has informed now looking like I think retrospectively quite a bit about the formation of thought, which I'm sure will come up at some point today. Um, I ended up doing my undergrad there in biomedical sciences, founded a company, moved to the UK for grad school, moved to San Francisco for another company, moved to Philly for another company, and now I live in New York City. And these days, I'm the founder of something called the Analogue Group. We are an R&D ecosystem with a fund at its core, and we fund essentially insane people. Which is another word for people whose work is going against the accepted wisdom of current disciplines. You could call that anti-disciplinary or illegible or whatever else you want to call it, but stuff that might be insane but might also create a cognitive dissonance in the very premises of how we think and how we behave. And then the ecosystem part is lots of different types of projects, whether that is living archives or Socratic salons. So they could be experiences, research heavy tools, that sort of thing. But all of those are really distribution for talent scouting. Um, so lots of my time is essentially spent 50% talent scouting and 50% fundraising.
Very interesting. And so, yeah, I can see how there's like a symbiosis between the investing side and the ecosystem side. I attended one of those salons. It was a very fun topic that we discussed. Looking forward
Which
to,
you attended the fertility one.
yes, the birth rates. Where are all the humans? That one.
Yeah.
It was a good discussion, you know. Hopefully I get invited to a future one, when you do it.
Oh.
How did you stumble upon this idea that I want to fund insane projects like that, as you put it? Like what was the thought process that led up to like this is a gap in the world that I think I can address?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think it came from two. Do you hear that, by the way?
I,
No?
I, I don't hear.
There's some like game going on in the Irish pub nearby. Everyone is just
What are they what
I'm
are
in the
they
south.
playing?
I don't know who's playing who, but it's insane and I'm here for it.
Okay.
But back to it. I hope your editor
Yes.
can cut this out.
No, I don't hear it. Don't worry, you're good.
Great. Um, Great question in how and why I started doing that. I think there's two reasons. One was I was basically in my dream role on paper. I was working on the founding team of a biotech startup, working on important problems that I thought I really, really cared about. They were at the perfect intersection. I had done my undergrad thesis on women's health disorders and diagnostic tools, and my grad school thesis on multimodal data, specifically, including computational pathology for diagnostics and prognostics and that sort of thing, and research. And I was working on a problem that was women's health related, breast cancer, and using multimodal data of diagnostics and prognostics of breast cancer. And I'm like, this is exactly what I want to be doing. I got to basically design my own role and Yeah, but I was so unhappy. Um, and I didn't know why. And I'd show up to work and I couldn't sometimes work. And so that was one reason. And I ended up going on sabbatical, and I'll get into the second reason. But um, and when I went on sabbatical, I, had a lot of time to think. And in hindsight, I realized that one of the reasons, you never know why. There's no one reason. But, one of the reasons was likely that is B2B SaaS really gonna solve breast cancer or poverty or climate change?
Mm.
No, it's not. We can't look at any of these problems as just technological or engineering problems because they are not. Sometimes you can't keep up with the regulatory pipeline. Okay, you have this test, but is it really going into the hands of the people that need it, or only the ones that can afford it, or the insurers that are willing to write that CPT code into their whatever, these problems are, engineering solution oriented and systems change and behavioral intervention, and they don't have to be additive. They could also be subtractive or a different permutation of those things. I think that was one thing. And on the second reason, I was meeting people who were genuinely doing anti-disciplinary research, so research that goes against the accepted wisdom of current disciplines. But they weren't getting funded anywhere else, like not from emergent ventures, not from any other groups, because there were too many constraints. A lot of these fellowships and groups will only give fellowships and scholarships and sort of, money to kids under 22 or 24, or only
Yeah.
for this specific thing that caters to their criteria of philanthropy and impact, right? Because they're so obsessed with objectives. So projects that might be too interdisciplinary or woo for academia, too speculative for venture capital, don't fit into philanthropy's boxes, but that are actually the things that move the needle. That's
Mhm.
how real research was done back in the day. We've just become incredibly discreet.
Mhm.
Um, and yeah, I was like, okay, no one else is gonna do it. So maybe I'll do it,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
maybe I can be the vessel for that work. So
No, very, very, very interesting. And you're right. It's like the kind of the really path breaking stuff is usually not just an extension of the legible boxes that people are fitting themselves into right now. It's usually in the gaps, right? Like there's this writer I like, Eric Hoffer. Have you heard of Eric Hoffer? He wrote this one book, True Believer, that people really talk about, but he has this other book called uh, The Ordeal of Change, which is a book of essays. A really great writer, a very interesting character also. But one of those essays started with this thing of how, I think in France, actually, he was referring to France, but back during the time of the revolution, maybe a little bit before that, how the engineering person was not taken seriously. Like math was seen as this like thing from the heavens, and it was the abstractions that were like cool. Like the engineering people are like toy makers. They make the toys. They're not like high status, right? But it's like that's where the Industrial Revolution came out of that. You know what I mean? So and then all of a sudden it's the engineers now who are, the ones who sort of are associated with the powerful things in society and shaping the future, et cetera. So that was interesting, and I always think about that, and I guess a little bit of that spirit, that reality is what you're trying to tap into. I've heard of multidisciplinary. I've never heard of anti-disciplinary. What is that? What's an example? Can you give us an example?
yeah, I mean, first, I've been working on an essay since like March called "The Courage to Be Changed." So I
Yeah.
have to check out this book,
The
The
Ordeal of
Order
Change.
of
Yeah, it's
Change.
fantastic. It's a book of essays. I highly recommend it. I read it. I've read it multiple times actually. It's really good.
Okay, because this idea slash question of change is something I've been thinking about both on like an individual behavioral perspective, but also just change in systems and change in evolution over time and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, this idea of anti-disciplinarity, it comes from the MIT Media Lab in the early 2010s. And As I think I mentioned, it means going against the accepted wisdom of current disciplines. I'll talk about someone we funded who's a great example of this. His name is Michael Edward Johnson, and he's working on something called the theory of basal computation. So he's looking at Buddhist phenomenology, so different states of consciousness, and mapping that into the physical vasculature
Okay.
in the human body.
Okay.
So what's contracting, what's
Mhm.
not in those different states of consciousness. And if you're
Yeah.
able to figure that out, that's not just questioning trauma at its core, it's questioning well-being at its core, because it's
Mhm.
showing that it's not all just cognitive. And
Mhm.
perhaps there is a way to uh for mental health to not be mental. And
Just mental.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
mental, not
You
just
can like
mental.
reverse engineer it to create the desired
Maybe not
psychology.
engineer, but
Yeah. Yeah.
perhaps
Catalog.
tap tap into states, be able to tap into the state of consciousness that you want to be in rather
Right.
than, you
Right.
know, you might call it, or the world might call it consciousness studies, or, you know, the Bhagavad Gita would just call it life. But anyways,
Okay.
um,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
that's very interesting. There's something that you touched on that I kind of wanted to pull on because I was just writing about this earlier. Um, you said something about, how engineers were sort of the bottom of the barrel
Maybe
and
something like that. I
something.
didn't look into it too closely, but that's the gist I got from Hoffer's
I
open.
mean, it's
Right.
true in the
Yeah.
sense that I had a conversation along these lines the other night too, where apparently like engineering is a profession you go to if like you like law medicine is considered higher than that in America, which is by the way is opposite I would say in Canada, because in Canada engineering is just as prestigious. In
Mhm.
fact, they do a separate ceremony for engineers in addition to
Mhm.
the ceremony, like the graduation ceremony. They get an iron ring that they all wear. Every engineer in Canada gets,
Oh, wow. Okay.
which is from like a bridge that fell to like commemorate, and it's like
Okay.
pretty prestigious. But
Yeah.
I realized that all technology is a response to uncertainty. And I'm
Mhm.
going to read off my notes here if you do want to talk about
Go ahead.
this.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
And it's just like examples I was writing about, how, I mean, I have this thesis around everything's an uncertainty problem, which is a courage problem, which is a faith problem. Because at the end of the day, we're just afraid, like we're psychologically not wanting to be okay with uncertainty, right? We are not interested in the truth. We just want to eliminate uncertainty. And all technology ever, starting with writing, you know, was a response to uncertainty. It
Mhm.
preserves memory, so we're not left with the uncertainty of forgetting.
Mhm.
Money, it reduces the uncertainty of barter and trust. Navigation tools, it the uncertainty of the ocean, right? Like the desert, the sky, phones, it shrinks the uncertainty of distance so that presence can be summoned at will. And underneath every technology, it's just an antidote to numbness, to absence, to not knowing, which brings us back to the borrowed fragility
Yeah.
of intelligence. What was
Yeah.
the title? Is that what I titled it? Yeah.
The fragility of
The
borrowed
fragility
intelligence.
of borrowed intelligence. Wow, can't even remember. But you
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
numbness, and which brings me to the Shirky principle. Do you know what that is?
I feel like I've heard it, but I don't know what it is. I've heard the phrase.
It's like named after Clay Shirky. He said something. Kevin Kelly coined this phrase, but essentially it's like institutions exist to preserve the problem that they create.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Which is the same
Yeah.
thing, it seems, with
Yeah.
technology these days and numbness, right? We create numbness and then we create solutions to that numbness.
Right. Right. It's like the arsonist is a firefighter kind of a thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
So let's dig into that a little bit. You had a great line in the essay where it's like I think I have it here on my phone, but I'm going to avoid finding it. It's something along the lines of like the human nature is not interested in truth; it's interested in the elimination of uncertainty. Like that's what we actually want. Is
Yeah.
and probably the hardest way to eliminate uncertainty is actually getting at what is true. That's like very hard. There are shortcuts along the way that we can take when we give up on, if we just decide to give up on the actual, the pursuit of the truth itself. Maybe that's me expanding on that. But let's connect this to AI a little bit. LLMs, chatbots, everybody's talking about them. Everybody's kind of worried about them. To your point about uncertainty, what does the future hold? I think in this essay, and I'm sure your thoughts on this are more co complex, but in this essay, you focused in on how you think this rapid proliferation of LLMs is going to produce certain kinds of subtle but rapidly creeping fragilities in our society. Okay.
Yeah.
Um, what are those fragilities and why is it that LLMs are going to create them?
Yeah, great questions. Um, First, I think I want to say something about the truth bit.
Go ahead, go ahead.
I We don't have to know the truth.
Okay. Yes.
I think that's an ego problem.
Okay.
We could also just be okay. And
Right.
I think that is key.
Yeah.
It's not like um the best way to get rid of uncertainty is actually to be in pursuit of truth and truth and truth and truth and truth.
Yeah.
And honestly speaking, that's a very male answer.
Yeah.
It's very male behavior
I
to be like,
agree. I agree.
I
I
can
agree.
find
Yeah.
truth and
Yeah.
you.
Yeah. There's like a masculine kind of energy in it, maybe. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Absolutely, because the conqueror vibe,
Right. Right. Right.
tower, whatever.
Yeah.
But the my worry, like when it comes to LLMs and artificial intelligence, my worry is not that they are bad. My worry is that we are not equipped to keep up with the advancement. If we were able to, if it took like 100 years to get to wherever it gets to, I think it would be actually great because we would adapt accordingly. But I think the pace of development is outpacing us. The pace of development of technology currently is outpacing us. And the two types of fragility that I sort of propose are economic fragility and epistemic fragility. And I've pulled up my own essay here as well, so I can remember what I wrote about. Um, Economic fragility is essentially when entire organizations forget how to walk without artificial intelligence because, people start to build on top of GPT-3, then GPT-4, then GPT-5, which is great, but nobody really understands how a clock works anymore.
Yeah.
And if all of that fell apart one day, what then? Do
Yeah.
we know how
Yeah.
to farm anymore?
Yeah.
Is
Yeah.
it robots that are farming? So
Right.
there's this like civilizational collapse that is a little bit doomer of me to say, and I'm not actually a doomer. I'm pro technology in a lot of ways, but
Yeah.
and then the other one I propose is epistemic fragility, which for me is actually more doomery because like I'm worried because I feel that I have a really interesting good now relationship with technology, which I've had to be incredibly intentional about. And I think that's another thing which comes at with epistemic fragility is because I've had the incredible privilege of being on the inside of some of these companies and being able to talk to executives at these organizations like OpenAI, Anthropic, and that sort of thing, and just know what is going on, or just be even in the world in the West where I'm a little bit more aware and things aren't just happening at me and happening to me, whereas I can also happen to it. So
Mm-hmm.
epistemic fragility is what happens when our craving for certainty outpaces our capacity for doubt. So if we're able to get answers right away,
Mm-hmm.
we we start to depend on them. And some folks in the world who might not have the privilege that we do, I'm going to say we, because you also are in this bucket of elites, um, is, you know, human beings, again, because like we're addicts
Mm-hmm.
at our core, no matter what.
Mm-hmm.
And if we get addicted to be able to get answers that quickly, and if there isn't enough space between the question and the answer, we'll become addicted to that certainty.
Right.
And if that goes away, we're I think perhaps doomed.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But maybe humans are a little bit more resilient than that, and I'm just being.
Yeah, yeah. No, I see what you're saying. It's so what is this? So fundamentally, the problem is like the LLMs accelerate the feedback loop to a feeling of certainty, which
Or
uh,
it gives you a feedback loop to a false
a
feeling of,
false feeling, just the feeling itself. But
yeah.
you may
There is no real certainty ever, and that's sort of the
right.
point
Okay.
of the work.
Yeah. So talk about that a little bit. I think you have a section in there called the wisdom of insecurity. Um, you know, uh, how is that the solution that you think sort of protects civilization is that we learn to exist in that space of doubt, but like don't you need answers in order to solve problems? Like how do you I'm trying to formulate the appropriate question here, but maybe you can sense it and you can just riff
This
on
is
something.
very like this is very analog related too because we
Okay.
don't believe in solving problems.
Okay, go ahead. Talk about that a little bit. Like, talk about this wisdom of insecurity, and maybe we can
Yeah,
come back to the fragilities. But I think you laid them out pretty well, actually.
yeah,
Um, the economic fragility thing is probably every advancement in technology will produce fears of economic fragility, right? Like, we're totally dependent on the internet. The internet goes down one day, I'm just gonna be sitting here like
and
twiddling my
we're gonna jobs.
thumbs. Yeah. So
It's like it's not even economic fragility. Our sense of purpose goes away.
Right, right. Our idea of like the scope of possibilities available to us just collapses, and we don't know what to do with ourselves because we haven't developed the competence to live in a different paradigm.
Exactly.
Um, and so you could say that that happens with every advancement of tech, every major paradigm shift in technology will bring that about. But this
But it
epistemic fragility, go ahead.
I was gonna say, but it takes a long time for that technology to become part of our DNA. Like
Right,
the printing press is now part of our DNA.
right, right,
It's not like a technology anymore. There's a certain time where it was a technology and it was new and it's like changing the way, like whenever a new medium is invented,
right,
essentially.
right, right, right.
So after the infinite scroll, we don't know what the next medium is either, which I think is going to be probably, Neuralink and those things, which is
Hmm.
insane to think about.
Yeah, it is.
But, but yeah, it's I think it's like it takes a long time for those technologies to be embedded in our DNAs as sort of our prosthetic limbs. Because books also became prosthetic limbs.
Totally, totally.
Right. Before
Yeah,
that, the typewriter.
yeah.
Before that, the radio, well, after that was a radio too, but whatever.
You're right.
And the infinite scroll has become part of our DNA, I would say now,
Hmm.
almost.
Hmm.
But even that is like not fully there yet. And you add LLMs on top of that, and then you add the possibility of consciousness in LLMs on top of that, and the possibility of, you know, offloading all cognitive load ever on top of that, multiple layers of that we don't have a strong foundation for because we haven't really adapted to the infinite scroll and everything that came with it. We're still figuring out. Anxious Generation wasn't written that long ago.
Yeah, yeah, totally. I mean, the
Like,
Infinite Scroll itself was probably like mid 2000s, late 2000s when it was brought in,
yeah,
like Facebook brought it, right?
we need like 20 years to like
Yeah.
uh,
I mean, I still remember in like, I don't know, I think it was like high school where it's like I don't think the Infinite Scroll,
the
or
Facebook wall ended
the
in high
Facebook wall, it
school.
was the wall, right? You have to go like visit your friend's
It
wall.
wasn't even the timeline, it was the
Yeah.
wall.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Something like that. Anyway, but
That's what I mean. I think when it changed from a wall
yeah,
where you were just posting on the wall to
right.
a timeline, the
Yeah.
introduction of a timeline is what ruined things for us. I
Okay.
believe this to my core.
It's interesting because you're comparing this to like books and you know, different kinds of mediums like that, maybe television, etc., radio. I feel like there is a backlash forming against the infinite scroll that I don't know if there was a similar kind of backlash that formed against books. I mean, maybe there was, maybe there was. I mean,
Well, I
yeah,
think it was like when it was books, but after the radio, the TV, when it became
yeah,
more when the space between the question and the answer got lower and lower and lower is when the backlash became higher and higher and higher. When the radio was introduced, people were like, it's taking our ears away. And when the
right,
TV was introduced, it was like, it's taking our ears away and our eyes away. And the
yeah,
infinite
yeah,
scroll took our attention away, took all of
right,
us.
right,
So
right.
I think,
Right.
yeah,
So with each progression, there's like a growing awareness of like maybe this progress of technology is moving us away from our humanity more and more. Maybe it's not really
yeah.
fulfilling the
To,
purpose of life. Anyway, yeah, go
yeah.
ahead.
And you'd asked me the question around consciousness and sort of talk about, sorry, the wisdom of insecurity and
Right.
how it,
Yes, go ahead.
and I mean, which brings me to the idea of consciousness, and the title "Wisdom of Insecurity" is a book by Alan Watts, which
Hmm.
is very influential to me. But it is like it's Buddhist philosophy essentially.
Hmm.
Um, but consciousness exists in polarity, right? We cannot feel joy if we cannot feel sadness. We cannot plan for the future without the ability to be able to think about the past. It's all relative.
Hmm.
And those polarities are very important. And being able to sit in those polarities is what consciousness is, the discomfort of those polarities.
Hmm.
If we cannot sit in the discomfort of those polarities and the space between them is non-existent because of how easily we're able to reach for temporary certainty, are we conscious? There's this
Right.
quote by David Foster Wallace I've been thinking about a lot, and it can I read this to you?
Go ahead.
It says the technology is just going to get better and better and better and better. And it's going to get easier and more convenient and more pleasurable to be alone with images on a screen given to us by people who do not love us but want our money, which is all right in low doses, right? But if that's the basic main staple of your diet, you're going to die. In a meaningful way, you're going to die.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Let me try to rephrase that in the way that I'm understanding it. When you say our consciousness is our ability to stand in the midst of those polarities, it's almost like consciousness is that consciousness, what you're referring to as consciousness, has the capacity to not to not just be pulled by impulses. That consciousness is who we are. There are impulses that pull us in a bunch of different directions. If there was no consciousness, we would just be like going like automatons, just getting pulled in whatever direction by whatever the immediate
Like
impulse.
ants.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. So, although some would argue ants do have some level of consciousness, but
100%.
that's a different that's a different conversation. But
Well, but that's where like the collective intelligence piece comes in, slime molds and all of those things. And what's funny is like our collective intelligence is what makes humanity. That is like in my opinion, like humanity is when the whole is greater than the sum of its parts. When
right,
human beings come together and they're able to form economic systems and
yeah,
healthcare systems and companies and open AI to be able to create another type of intelligence.
right,
Like, that's insane. But that is only
right,
possible because of the polarities we're able to hold as human beings to be able to discern between those polarities.
right,
So I would even go as far as to say that our consciousness is, yes, it's like to be able to hold discomfort in those polarities, but it's also discernment, the ability to discern.
right. And until you can find stability in the midst of those polarities, you're not going to have the necessary stability to like have that clear discernment. You're just going to be pulled around. I mean, in some sense, I guess what your essay is doing and what this line of thinking is doing is you're trying to connect the contemporary challenge of like the most cutting edge technology that's hitting us with like the age old kind of human condition, right? And maybe something something along the lines of like what you're calling the capacity to sit in the tension between, you know, doubt and certainty, between pain and pleasure, all these different polarities, right? That is a kind of, I don't know, I'll call it spiritual strength, that we can develop. Uh, and our consciousness has that ability. And maybe in some sense, the ease and comfort and quickening of the feedback loop between doubt and certainty that technology is allowing us to do is actually maybe you would say robbing us of the ability to develop that spiritual strength. That life wouldn't in the past would force that on us because life was just hard and we just had to find a way to deal with the polarity. So we had to cultivate a kind of inner strength. But technology is progressing in a way that it allows us to not develop that kind of that dimension. And that's a problem.
I would say that that is causing that, and it's an opportunity.
Okay.
It's a wake-up call.
Yeah.
And it's showing us, it's genuinely demonstrating us our own magic,
Elaborate.
that human beings are capable of that.
Mm.
By taking that away from us,
Right.
they're realizing what we were missing because we took it for granted for such a long time. Our spirit, like
Right.
our spirit,
Right.
like the
Right.
fact that we can, like, I don't know if you're familiar, this is a little bit woo-woo, but the idea of like magic with a K at the end. Do you know about this?
No.
It is like
I know
some,
Magic the Gathering, but that's with a C. It's a card game that I used to play.
but it's like magic is, I think it was like self-belief as a tool,
Okay.
or that there's a pluralism project at Harvard. They in
Okay.
paganism, magic
Okay.
refers to the ritualization of one's spiritual intentions. It's often spelled with a K after the usage of Aleister Crowley, a 20th century esotericist who wished to differentiate as practice from stage magic. But
Mhm.
it's basically ritual techniques that change a person's consciousness so that he or she may better perceive and participate in divine reality, are regarded as magic with a K at the end.
Okay. What else have you been looking into? What else is on your mind in terms of these like social blind spots that you think are interesting that we should pay attention to?
I mean, our whole job, this is our alpha,
Yeah.
is
Yeah, yeah.
the scouting. We spend a lot of time and effort in anonymous Twitter accounts and salons across the world and
Right.
weird projects that we do, to be able to do this stuff. We're looking at someone who's looking at pain from a stuckness angle.
Mm.
Looking at, I
Blind
guess
spot.
one other one
Yeah.
that we've already funded, that is public online as well as Omar Shahada's work on memetics. He's looking at the anatomy of an internet argument and how social movements are formed.
Mm.
And just because everyone, like we think about systems at a micro level as it relates to, all the way down to the chemistry and the biology and the physics of things, and we look at things at a macro level,
Mhm.
at the like economic systems and that sort of thing, but we're not really looking at the new micro level, which is the digital, sort of ecosystems that we inhabit, which is sort of the macro level as well. If you look at it like, like the Twitter ecosystems, the blue sky ecosystems, and then down to the micro of like, how do we think about, or like essentially like how one tweet catches fire and that can lead to the entire quiet quitting
Right.
epidemic,
Right. Right. Right.
the great
Yeah.
resignation
Right.
of like,
That was driven, that was a, you think, a viral social media phenomenon that triggered it, or it was something that was already happening and people picked
I
up on
think I think it was quietly happening. A few people named it, and then it
it, and then it
became,
became a thing, it became legible. Yeah. Yeah.
but it's someone. That's what I like when the whole becomes greater than the sum of like someone here tweeted about it. Ugh, work sucks. Blah 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 blah.
Yeah.
Someone else saw it, and then
Right.
the pattern starts forming, and the algorithm starts picking that up.
Right.
So
Right. Right.
what's funny is like we also create those algorithms.
Yeah. Yeah.
If we didn't have those, we might not have noticed those patterns and we might still be in a weird, painful state
Right.
of quitting
Right.
without
Right.
like a term for it. But social
Right.
movements, I think, are also they're just like such an interesting thing that happen, and they happen every few years, I feel. Well,
Yeah.
they used to happen like every like a couple decades, but
Yes.
now they're happening like every
Yes.
few years in some
Because you
ways.
can get people I think, I think it was Noah Smith who has a really nice article where he contrasts between vertical and horizontal communities. Have you read this one?
That sounds familiar, but I have not,
Like the
no.
vertical community is like the community based on your like interest or identity or some shared interest basically that you have with other people, but they may not be geographically proximate. And horizontal is your geographically proximate community, you know. And
Hmm.
it used to be for most of human history that like the geographically proximate community is your primary sort of community. And it's very hard to find people who are aligned on interests. And with the growth of this communications technology, it's become more and more easy where now a person can live where their vertical community membership dominates their social life rather than their horizontal, and their horizontal community kind of fades into the background, you know.
This is exactly what the metaverse is sort of betting on is vertical communities. I have a hot take around like, these like co-living houses and communities that many are manufactured for people our age that do. And again, also all my opinions strong opinions lightly held because sometimes they evolve and I'm very open to new perspectives and I might think differently in 2 weeks and that's okay. But
Yeah.
I have a perspective around like this horizontal vertical community thing in the sense that I don't believe in manufacturing horizontal community that we are trying to do these days, where, people will be like, let's all buy houses on the same block. Or in New York, like, let's get an apartment building and get a bunch of apartments in that building. Or let's get a huge house in Brooklyn and then live in different rooms there. Because the point of community in my opinion, I grew up in India, so in like a true freaking gully people, we're weird neighbors and this and that, and the grandma of this person knows when I'm at school, and the mom of this person is watching me if I'm with a boy, and it's gonna get reported. Um,
Yeah, fun times.
the
Surveillance capital. No, I'm just kidding.
I
Yeah, yeah.
brown moms invented surveillance, but that's another thing.
That's
But
podcast too,
I
yeah.
I think the point of community is to connect with the
Different people.
Yeah, or like the 89-year-old neighbor and then like the 4-year-old child of your
Yeah,
other neighbor.
yeah,
And like the point because the cross-contamination of those relationships, because if you manufacture that, then it's like you almost can predict. But
yeah, yeah,
then
yeah, yeah,
there's
yeah.
no chance for serendipity. There's no
Right.
like you might meet someone you don't expect to meet otherwise, but
Yeah.
here, yeah.
It's the same thing that you're talking, and I know your time's running out, so I think this would be a good place to kind of round out. But it's that same kind of inability to hold tension.
Yeah.
This is a social uncertainty, social anxiety, the tension of differing perspectives, differing values, the inability to like hold that tension uh,
Yeah.
drives people into into sort of manifesting their vertical communities in their physical space rather than changing themselves. Let me just change my environment
I
to
mean,
kind of fit. Yeah.
which like everything's an emotional dysregulation problem and nervous system problem at the end of the day. And then some folks have like I'm in this space where, a lot of people have like their own sort of view to fixing this tension issue with
Mhm.
uncertainty. Some folks are like, everyone needs to do somatic coaching. I do that, but some people are like, you need to be able to reach resonance on your own, and it's that way that you can find nervous system, whatever.
Mhm.
You can just unclench. Some meditation folks,
Mhm.
especially like white people in the West, will be like, just unclench. That's enough. You don't actually need to read the poems and the deities that come with
Right,
the
right, right, right. Yeah.
minus this. That's so funny.
Yeah.
But um, yeah, I think the one of the best ways is this consistent, if you can help yourself realize that how unimportant you are
Mhm.
in the grand scheme of things.
Mhm.
It gives you a sense of humility that the embarrassment or the cringe or the whatever that our generation is calling it that comes with uncertainty,
Mhm.
you can just hold more of it.
Right, right.
You, I think increasing, I think the answer is to, I think I put it in my essay somewhere, is like to increase your capacity for uncertainty. The medium I believe that needs to come back is poetry, which is, because it gave, I think poetry is able to, it gave us the constraints to be able to sort of produce an embodied experience
Mhm.
because you kind of have to it has like some rhyme or rhythm and it's like kind of cryptic, but you have to like read it and like really think,
Mhm.
and it makes you pause,
Mhm.
right? And it's about like create like and someone else might be able to have a similar embodied experience because of those constraints. So it's like the
Mhm.
beauty of so I have like theses around like new mediums and poetry and that sort of thing,
Yeah,
but
that's interesting. People don't read poetry as much as they probably used to. That's a good
no
observation.
one's reading fiction either, to be honest. I'm not
Well,
reading fiction.
I think there are some like young adult fiction novels that I think are pretty popular that I see people reading. But yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, like the it's
I'm talking about like literary fiction, like
right,
good literary fiction.
right.
But
Fighting words, fighting words.
I
Yeah.
mean, like I've never read Wuthering Heights or anything like that.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. No, but generally, I mean, reading culture is de declining, and what are the not I mean, poetry, yes, but even prose now, and what are the like ramifications of that on us? We still don't fully know. I think that's fair.
And like again, we are the privileged people who like I'm able to be here in France for 2 weeks to read.
Right.
I understand the importance of that.
Right.
But even being able to make time for that, so it's about sort of like how can we help if we that's something we want to do is like increase like capacity for uncertainty is the real question that I'd love to end with. And
Yeah. Yeah. And I guess your prescription for the accelerating feedback loops of AI, which can get us more and more addicted to quick certainty, is to just the only solution or the best solution, according to you, is to consciously cultivate the capacity for uncertainty. That's like, and then that'll translate to other areas of life.
I mean, I think we all need to get dumb phones. I
Yeah,
think that we need to go back to landlines. My company's called Analogue for a
yeah,
reason.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
I think analog technologies are the best in the sense that like like all these parts come together to make a whole and it moves somehow.
Hmm.
That's so cool versus like a
Hmm.
digital, the bits that like when something goes discrete, there's loss that happens.
Yeah,
A vinyl, for example, it's an exact resonance of the etching
right.
on.
Yeah,
It is the exact embodied experience.
yeah,
Um, so I have this idea for like a collective curiosity project I really want to do in New York City where
yeah.
I get like a group of 10 people dumb phones. Because it's like if I get a dumb phone and my friends don't have it, then I'm not gonna use it as much. But if my friends are in on it, then it's like we're all in this like weird thing and then we hang out in person and we call because like we are each other's social group as well. And I think that can then grow from there as well. And I think there are people like I have a block, there's some people who have bricks, people who are introducing friction into their workflows. So yeah,
Totally,
I think
totally.
something like that is like
Yeah.
how we start, but hopefully it becomes a movement and there's regulation. I don't know. I don't know
Yeah,
what to
yeah.
do.
No, I mean, we've talked to plenty of people who are contributing to that movement, I think. Matt, who you know, wrote a really great essay with some great ideas along those lines.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, the great
I'm
essay.
sure we don't have time to get into this. I'm sure there could be very interesting and healthy debate around this. For example, the etching of the vinyl, you could say at one level, that level of precision and sophistication of etching, maybe we've lost, but at another level, you could say we've perfected it. If you look at ASML, you know, it's like we're etching things at nanometer levels. It's just very
Yeah.
few people do that, know that kind of mastery, and everybody else sort of benefits from not having to learn more precise skills. If that makes sense, you know what I mean? It's like,
I think being able to see it
right.
and being able to understand it and
Yeah.
for it to not be a meso compound to some product.
Okay.
In chemistry, there's like, you've got reactions and there's like middle compounds that form, but you don't ever see it,
Never see
but you
it.
can
Yeah,
make the
yeah,
middle
yeah.
compound to
Yeah, 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 yeah.
react and then to have the final product.
Right. All the
So
complexity is being more and more hidden.
exactly, it's being compressed. And
Yeah.
it's not about compressing complexity, it's about holding it.
Okay. Okay. Yes.
Holding it.
And which means you need to be aware of it. You need to be able to see it. Yeah.
Yeah, like acoustic guitars, I think reel to reel, like magnetic tapes, like all this stuff is so cool.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like when we
So
have an
like
op,
we
we're gonna have
we
some
we
analog.
hit some sweet spot maybe in your mind. We hit some sweet spot and
Yeah.
then we overshot it. You know,
Yeah.
and that's interesting.